All right, friends, I am back with Eurotrash episode number 5. And this week, we're only talking about 2 fights, starting off with Salkild against Gamrot. This was the main event at the Apex this past weekend on Saturday. And it was a very interesting matchup between the young up-and-comer on a big win streak against the aging veteran. Gamrot has been around for a long time, has been in the top 10 for a long time, and has fought, pretty much all the best guys, or most of the best guys. So this was a huge step up for Salkild, and he proved that he belongs right up there by finishing Gamrot in the first round. I think what surprised people the most was that he submitted Gamrot. The general conversation before the fight was, can Salkild defend Gamrot's grappling and knock him out? That was just kind of the general conversation. However, Salkild actually took Gamrot down late in the first round, and ended up taking his back and sinking in a rear naked choke to get the win. So let's break this down, because this was very interesting. Gamrot is known as a very good grappler. He has qualified for ADCC in the past, in his younger years. He has just consistently shown his grappling in all of his fights, and he does have submissions. He does have jiu-jitsu. Obviously, if you can qualify at that weight class for ADCC, you have to have solid jiu-jitsu. But he is more of a wrestling stylist. He will shoot an endless amount of shots if needed, and that's kind of his style. Very scrambly, shoots over and over, and he's an overall high-paced grappler. So that's usually how he gets his wins, but it was not enough against Salkild over here, and it's an interesting conversation that we'll get into a little bit later about grappling styles and the state of grappling in Europe, for MMA, because jiu-jitsu in MMA is so different these days than sports jiu-jitsu, and that is a very important topic. But let's go over the fight first. Gamrot, like I said, is a very good grappler overall. But I think we can see the I don't want to say the holes in his game in this fight, but we can definitely see how, in a way, even though he is still considered among the best grapplers in the lightweight division, you can see how his style is a little bit outdated, and how a guy like Salkild, who started training much later, has much less experience grappling in general, was able to out-grapple him in this fight. So first significant thing that happened in the fight was Salkild landing a sort of fadeaway left hook that definitely chinned Gamrot. You could see that he was wobbled by this left hook, and immediately he reacted by shooting very low. This is very typical for Gamrot. He'll shoot very low, commit both hands to one leg, and that's exactly what he did. He shot in, and he couldn't really finish it cleanly. It was a battle. He kept driving and holding on, but Salkild was able to scramble and get away from him. At this point, I'm not sure how how long the exchange was, but yeah, Salkeld was able to defend this low single, kind of Sakuraba style single, and get away from Gamrot. And it really ended, the scramble ended with Salkeld behind Gamrot on the feet, though. So they were along the fence. Salkeld was able to, from the scramble, get behind Gamrot, and Gamrot rolled for a leg. Okay, he did the old Boss Rutan and rolled for the knee bar, and it was nice. It was pretty technical, and he got a good angle. He got a good hold of Salkeld's leg for sure, and it looked tight. It looked threatening. I only saw it that one time, but from what I remember, it looked like he was trying to control it under the armpit, and you could tell from Salkeld's expression, his facial expression, that it was no joke. Salkeld was concerned, but he was using his other leg, to try and pry it open, try and change the angle and get his knee out, which forced Gamrot to transition to a inside heel hook. Okay, he transitioned. The angle was off, so he went for the inside heel hook. I believe this was Salkeld's right leg that he was attacking, and he went for that 411 or honey hole or saddle, whatever you guys call it. He went for that inside heel hook, and he got a pretty good bite. Again, Gamrot is no joke over here. Obviously, he's not some leg lock specialist, but he had some decent technique there, and he got pretty deep. The only problem was the angle. Salkeld's knee was already, leg was already turned away from Gamrot, sort of into that running man position. And even though Gamrot did have a bite on that heel, it wasn't an ideal position in the sense that if Gamrot's knee was pointing straight up, and if Salkeld's knee was pointing straight up and Gamrot had his hips right into the outside of Salkeld's right leg, he could have really exploded his knee there. And, even without the tap, maybe Salkeld wouldn't have been able to really function. But it was turned away a little bit, and Salkeld eventually pry his knee out, sort of escape his knee. It took a bit of time. It wasn't super clean, but he did get that knee out and, turned back into Gamrot. And that was when things really started falling apart for Gamrot. They got back to the feet, and I think this really shocked Gamrot as he was backed up against the fence. Salkeld shot on him, changed levels up against the cage, double leg, and took him down. So Gamrot's sitting down against the cage, and here is, the first of two massive mistakes that Gamrot made. And it's hard to know if this was sort of panic or if it was Gamrot just not respecting Salkeld's offensive grappling. You really would have to ask him. But from that position, he just gave his back. In order to be able to stand up, he gave his back, kind of ducked in, and it looked like he had no respect for Salkeld's, back takes. So that gave Salkeld an easy transition to get behind Gamrot as Gamrot came off the fence from that sitting position, from that wall walk position. And he was able to get his hooks in. And at that point, Gamrot tried a quad pod and shake him off. But again, huge mistake. Salkeld already had his hooks in. He went one short, one long, And as Gamrot placed both hands on the ground to try and, I guess stand up. He sort of quad potted, and then he was maybe trying to stand up with them. Salkild took that opportunity and sunk in a rear naked choke. Got deep, and then that was it. They did roll to back to the ground. Gamrot sort of fell back, but by then it was too late. The choke was in, and that was it. That was the end of the fight. So like I said, very hard to know exactly what Gamrot was thinking there, but two massive mistakes in the grappling department. And here is where, you look at this and you have to say that Gamrot, again, in this elite context, obviously, he's a top 10 lightweight, but, and he's dominated so many guys with his grappling. But here you can see these shortcomings where he's very good offensively in terms of control and takedowns and negating his opponent's offense. But when he gets into these bad positions, and we saw this against Charles Oliveira, I believe Oliveira choked him out as well with a rear naked choke. He does not have the best defensive awareness. And, it probably stems from him being so good offensively in terms of control and takedowns that he just, hasn't spent that much time in those positions. Obviously he spent a lot of time there, considering he's been around for a long time competing at the world-class level. But compared to his offense, to his A game, it's just not up to par. He I think this was 2 fights ago where he fought Oliveira and he got choked. And then same thing here, different position, but again, these turtle positions, when guys get on your back, if you're trying to stand up, quad pod, and you put both hands on the ground, you're in danger against a guy with good submissions, a guy with a good rear naked choke. That is not the direction you want to go in. Much better off, trying to control at least one of his hands and actually rolling him to his back in order to hand fight him and then try to turn into him and things like that. That's definitely the way to go. Always just trying to stand up. I know it's a meme, the whole just stand up, but it's not that simple. Okay, the guys running around saying jiu-jitsu doesn't work if you just stand up. It's not real. Okay, it's a meme, but it's not real, especially against guys who have good MMA jiu-jitsu. You're gonna get crushed, and you're going to tap or go to sleep if you actually believe that. So yeah, Salkild was not afraid to go into these grappling exchanges with Gamrot and actually attacked him with his own double leg and submitted him. So very impressive from a young guy, 26 years old, who hasn't really been doing MMA or jiu-jitsu for very long. So it just goes to show how quickly you can develop and improve these things. I talked about this last week in terms of offensive grappling and how quickly you can add that to your game and progress if you're training with with the right people in the right environment. And this fight demonstrated exactly what I was talking about. There's guys who've been in the UFC for 10 years and haven't made any improvements to their offensive grappling. And then you look at a kid like Salkild, training with a very good coach, and just making massive progress in a very short amount of time. So that really proved my point. And that's that takes us to our topic of the day. How bad is European grappling? What does that mean? What are we talking about? How bad is it? It's not good. It's not very good when you look at it from a MMA through an MMA lens. Okay, because we do have some very good grapplers in terms of ADCC, no gi, or even sports jiu-jitsu in the gi. Of course. But when you look at guys in MMA in Europe, there's very few. There's very few guys that are grappling effectively. You'll have some of these regional guys who came over from decorated grappling careers, and they're okay, but they really don't develop in other parts, in other aspects, and can't really get past a certain level. We have those guys running around in KSW and these regional organizations. And then you have guys who just never high-level grapplers. But when you look at the MMA scene, Poland's a pretty big country. MMA is very popular. Jiu-jitsu is very popular. You look at the MMA scene, and there are a lot of their good MMA guys, whether guys that are competing regionally or even internationally, and a lot of these guys are just kind of more stand and bang guys, and they do have some grappling, but if you look at it, they're not making any improvements. So there is a divide. And these days with grappling, jiu-jitsu being sports jiu-jitsu being so different from MMA grappling, MMA jiu-jitsu, here in Europe, we're definitely seeing that divide. We're seeing that divide, and the Euros here are a little bit behind. When you compare it to North America, obviously North America has that folk style collegiate wrestling funnel, that base that definitely helps. And then you look at Australia and how effective some of these guys have been with their grappling in a short amount of time. Even the guys that are vets now, like Whitaker and Volkanovski, throughout the years, what they have done, and now you have a kid like Salkild. They clearly have a better system than what we're seeing in general here in Europe. It's a little bit disconnected over here, and you might have some good grapplers, but it's not translating to MMA that well. You have the exceptions. I mean, you look at Paddy Pimblett. He's a guy who, obviously, if you put him up against these elite grapplers at ADCC, he would get worked. But in terms of MMA, his grappling is very well designed and very efficient, very effective for what he's trying to do out there, and he keeps on proving it for the most part. So you have guys like that. Paddy, I think he's like 30 now, so it's not like he's a young up and comer. But yeah, that's my perspective on what's going on over here in terms of MMA. So it's a bit of a hole, it's a bit of a weakness, and it's right there to be exploited. And that's what we're doing over here. We've been exploiting it for the past few years, and it's definitely shown itself in the past few years, whether it's amateur results or even some of our young pros coming up. We've definitely been taking advantage of this weakness that European MMA has at this time. And of course, I'm not counting the the Dagestanis, okay, and those guys. Those guys have it figured out over there, and even in Russia and all those parts over there in the East. I am not talking about them. I'm talking about Western and Central Europe over here. This is its own little bubble in terms of development and even just the overall MMA scene. When you look at some of these regional European organizations, they tend to keep themselves in this Euro bubble. They don't sign very many guys from the East, from Russia, and the former Soviet Union countries. They really keep them out for various reasons, but I think the big thing is that they're really trying to protect their stars, their European guys who sell tickets for them, and they're constantly trying to gas them up and make sure that they can sell tickets. So that's the politics of European MMA, and that's why you see this trend where a lot of people here are in a bit of a bubble, and they start really believing that they are much better than they really are. We've seen this over and over in Europe. It's just how it is. So that's how I see it. And let's move on now. Let's move on. And the grappling conversation will continue here, but let's move on to next week's. Not next week. I mean, it's this Saturday. So it's this week. Main event between Makhachev and Garry for the welterweight title. Garry, another guy, a European guy, I guess. If you if you want to call it that. I think he spends a lot of time in Brazil these days. But Garry, he's a decent grappler, but I don't know how much he has developed. He's been out there training with Oliveira, so you have to assume he's made some improvements. But when you look at his fights, it's not bad. He has shown skill. He has shown very good upper body takedown defense against Rachmanov a couple years ago at this point, almost 2 years ago, I think. And, he's not an easy guy to submit, that's for sure. But I don't think he has made the kind of offensive grappling progress that he could have in the years that he's been in the UFC, considering his frame, his overall talent and athletic ability. I think he's another example of a guy, of course, at the highest level here. We're talking about at the highest level, but he is an example of the European grappling problem. And coming up against Makhachev here, even though it's welterweight, and Makhachev is a guy who's only fought one fight at welterweight, and that was against a smaller JDM, small as in small for welterweight. JDM is a guy who I think could make lightweight realistically. And Makhachev did control him, to a decision and really dominated him. Garry is a much bigger guy, much longer, more dangerous in many ways for Makhachev. But when people ask me about this fight, for sure Garry does have a chance here. I'm not underestimating him. He has a lot of weapons. He has a huge reach advantage here. But for Garry to win, he's going to have to take risks. He's going to have to go out there and take some big risks, because if he tries to just dance around Makhachev, maintain range, I don't think that's going to be instant. Get some takedowns, especially lower body. Garry is strong on the upper body takedown defense, not as good on the lower body. And, Makhachev will then be able to get a lot of control time. Might be tough to get a finish, to submit Garry. But if someone asked me to make a prediction here, I would say Makhachev should be able to get a decision victory against Garry. Why? Because I don't think, from what I've seen, Garry, in the past 3 years, he hasn't been finishing guys. Of course, he's been fighting at a high level. He's fighting the best guys, but still, it's tough to expect Garry after these years to suddenly become this big risk taker. I think he's a pretty conservative fighter in general, and against Makhachev here, that's probably not the best game plan. Of course, he might be able to land something even with this kind of conservative strategy. Makhachev could make a mistake and get caught. Obviously, that's possible, but more likely than not, if Garry is conservative in this fight, if Garry does not take big risks, he'll probably end up losing a decision here. That's just how I see it. And getting back to the grappling again, okay, this is extreme because because of how good Makhachev is, and it's not just sambo. It's definitely not wrestling. It's jiu-jitsu. Makhachev has very good jiu-jitsu. I mean, the kind of training he had back at AKA with the type of guys he trained with over there for years. Trust me, Makhachev is very good at jiu-jitsu. Of course, it's hard to expect Garry to have offensive success in terms of grappling Makhachev. But then again, look at Salkild and Gamrot. Comparatively, Salkild going in there, double-legging Gamrot, taking his back and choking him out, I think is just as shocking as if we had Garry do the same to Makhachev. Considering where they're at in their career. So that's something that is probably not going to happen. I don't think Garry has done that. I don't think Garry has made that kind of progress. And, it is what it is at this point. He's already elite. He's already up there. Maybe he can pull it off. But that is the future for the guys coming up, for the next generation. Even being well-rounded in the sense that you can just defend, let's say you want to strike and just defend the grappling, that's not going to be enough. You need to develop offense in all areas. Outside of heavyweight, maybe light heavyweight, I think that'll take longer. Might take forever. But yeah, the mindset shift is already here. You see it with guys like Salkild. You need to be going in there and being able to threaten guys with your striking and your grappling. If you're a guy, and at this point we see, there's no one running around thinking that they're just going to grapple. Like, I don't need to strike. I'm just going to do the Hoist Gracie, hop in and just grapple. Those days are over. No one's doing that. Everyone understands that they're going to need to strike and that they're going to have to pose some kind of threat with their striking. But there's still a lot of guys, and these guys are current guys that are just still there, surviving, decent fighters, that don't pose any kind of threat with their offensive grappling. They, it's just them thinking defensively. So that hampers their striking as well. Their opponents don't have to worry about more than one thing. And that's just not going to be enough. At these competitive weight classes, you're going to have to be